guys, Matt, IronTrap Garage, working on the free T again. So in the last episode you saw where my buddy Ben came over and we kind of got a jump start on the new headers side pipe setup that we're running on the car, and I worked on getting a radiator support rods built for it, and that just gave me a little break from doing sheet metal work on the car. One of the other reasons on why we threw the body back on is I need to make some final rear corner patches for the body. For anybody that's been following this build since the beginning, the back, I'd say 10 inches of the car was filled with filler and rot and fiberglass sheet over top of the damage. And I cut most of that out. I made some little corner pieces just roughed in, just to kind of get an idea of what I needed to do for that center rear panel. Now I need to make some final corner patches that I can actually weld in and will attach to that rear center panel, and I can weld everything up. And that's pretty much the last of the rust repair on this car. Thank goodness. It's been, oh my gosh, it's been a long road of basically rebuilding the whole entire car. We've kind of crazy thinking back. I was joking with somebody that stopped by the visit on Sunday service. There's only maybe like 10-15% of this body that is original metal anymore that I didn't make from scratch, which is pretty crazy, but it's still needed that the body retains its old soul by keeping some of that original metal in there, so I think that is important. But I need to get all these patches made to make the body solid, and of course now that we've switched gears and decided to paint the car, the stuff needs to be pretty decent so that we can just do some white body filler work over top of it, and we're not putting fiberglass sheet over top of rotted metal. So I'm going to start working on patterning out these pieces for the back and try and get them made and tacked in for this episode. So let's get started. All right, so I have my panel here that I hammered out all of the, put all those like walnuts in them where you pound into the panel, and that kind of brings the shape up really fast, and then in the wheel I'm able to roll it like I'm doing, progressively adding more pressure to kind of smooth it all out and bring up the shape. So I'm getting closer. I pretty much smoothed out all all the pound marks in it, and I'm just trying to kind of refine the shape a little bit. So I measured with my radius gauge, my little one, around the panel to get an idea of what kind of shape it had. It's left to right and then also top to bottom. And as you're shaping without a rubber band like this, you're actually shaping 360 degrees in a radial manner. So we are mostly shaping over the bottom anvil, and that's giving the majority of our shape, which is where I need it. And then it has a little bit of shape going kind of down. So that's kind of doing everything we need in one shot, and that's why we're hammering it, because it's stretching the metal out in all directions like we want. So now I can got it a little smoother. Now what you'll see here along the edges, and hopefully in this shot you can really see it, all these ripples here are extra material. I've been purposely staying away from the edge because those areas don't need to be stretched, they actually need to be shrunk down. Now I have some extra material because I want extra material to be able to grab onto with my hands while I'm working in the wheel, and then we'll trim it down. But I need to shrink along these edges to help kind of pull it around, because right now we're stretching in the center, and there's all this extra material that's going to be left after you stretch the center out. It's all floppy on the edges, so we need to shrink that down. So you can shrink a little bit when you get those with the wheel. If you have one of these tucks, you can kind of carefully, without any pressure, if you push pressure on the wheel, you're actually going to be stretching again. So you want it to almost be able to slip. And what you're going to do is basically get behind. So I'm going to go just a little. And you have to have a wheel that doesn't flex very much to be able to do this. So I can just barely slip it there. And you can get behind the tuck and pull it like that. And if you have a good wheel that you can actually, that doesn't flex, you can actually kind of smash out the tuck, and it's kind of completing that shrink on the edge. So this is just a way to kind of smooth out those tucks real quick. If you have a wheel that doesn't flex a ton, you got to do that. Now as I'm doing that, I'm kind of pulling down on it at the same time, and it's smoothing those puckers out just a little bit. And I already kind of roughed them out a little bit earlier on, but you can see some of them are already smoothed out quite a bit. So now I can kind of start pulling them around as we go. But we can check this here, and I had about a number 6 on my radius gauge here that we need. So I'm going to pull it flat like this, take some of it out, and we can check where we're at. So number 12, I'm pretty much dead on, but number 6, where it really needs to be, I'm off. I'm not there yet, and I have quite a bit of ways to go. Not a lot, but a little bit of ways to go. So what I'm going to do is take it over to the bag again, hammer on it some more, wheel it out, and that will raise it up, and then we'll have to do the same thing with the extra material on the edges here. We'll have to pull those shrinks, or those puckers out, and kind of shrink them into shape. But probably another round like this, and I'll be able to have it pretty much into shape that we can trim it down and start test fitting it. right, so you saw I got the other side hammered out. I wheeled it in the wheel, got everything kind of smoothed out. I'd say about 70 to 80%, and so on the last shot I was kind of clamping everything in place. Fits pretty decent, and I basically am pretty close to being able to tack that piece in. We just have to cut away the original metal so that we get the final fit in there. But I'm pretty happy with that. I want to move on to this side so that I can get all of my metal made and kind of set in place so that I can tack both sides in, and then I can just weld these corners and then also all the way across this back section that I only tacked. I can get all that done in place, and then I can just spend a bunch of time kind of finishing out these panels. So I'm going to use the same pattern. So this is a good example for when you guys are building or messing with these cars. A lot of times they are pretty close to symmetrical, but with this real old stuff, it was kind of different from car to car and sometimes side to side. This car is so damaged and rotted and was out of square and all twisted that I didn't really trust just winging it and making another panel without checking the fitment first. So that's why I kept my little pattern here. I kept this handy, and what I can do is just fit this against and see if it will work. And the little tail that I have down here, the tapers, this actually fits down into the side panel. This side, the side panel is kind of bent away just a little bit because I never tack welded it or spot welded it to the sides because I knew I was making these corners up. So I could fit that down in between like that, tuck it behind the panel or around the panel. Oops, gotta flip it over here. There we go. So, fit that in there. That made the dive down so it fits behind. This side we could fit behind, but I'll just let it lay over top. Level with the bottom of the rear panel that we made already. And everything actually tucks in pretty good. So I think I can use this pattern as my template to draw on the metal. Like you saw in the first piece, I made it much larger than this piece was, and that gave me some extra room when I was hammering it out and rolling it in the wheel. Gave me some extra room for holding it, and also gave me a little room to adjust the shape as I got it closer to fitting the vehicle. So I'll trace this out, hammer out this one, wheel it out, kind of show you the same process so that we should have two pieces kind of made and clamped in place that we can start trimming away the old metal and getting ready to get rid of our last major rot in the car, I hope. So I got this panel taken out of the wheel, and it is, even though it looks a little rough on the outside edges here, if you look all out in here, it's still got that potato chip kind of look. But the center here is pretty smooth. It matches the number 6 radius that's on my gauge. I know that's relative, it doesn't really mean anything to you, but what I was aiming for was a number 6, which pretty much the whole way through. Down in here I start to lose it a little bit, but the panel actually kind of what we need. If you look right in here is waste. And also all those potato chipped areas throughout. If you can see my line for my patch here, I know it might be tough to see, but all this potato chipped area around the edges here, that's actually waste. I'm going to be cutting that off. So when you saw in some of the previous shots, I was kind of trying to like crush some of the shrinks out. We were crushing them a little bit with the wheel, which was nice. It kept the panel kind of going the direction I wanted, but I wasn't worried about making these edges perfectly smooth because, well, we're cutting them off. So I just needed them to get under control so that the panel kind of flowed the way I went, and all this extra material here is actually kind of loose material that should be shrunk. So if this whole entire panel was our patch, I would need to be shrinking way out into here to get it to pull in and get rid of this loose material. But all I needed to do was shrink some of it, and it helped pull the area that I care about in. So now that this kind of matches, what I can do is trim this to shape, get it to fit like the other side, and then I can take both of them and put them on the wheel or the planishing hammer and just run over them and just blend all the shapes in really nice so that everything kind of flows pretty well, and we're ready to weld it in without anything being too far out of shape. So I'm gonna get this cut, get it fit, and then we'll show you both sides. All right, so I got the passenger side patch all smoothed out. Got the edges all trimmed to shape and fitted in, and it fits pretty darn good. I'm really happy with how both these pieces came out, and I didn't do a ton of finish work to them, but I got them pretty acceptable, and they are just clamped in place lightly right now to just kind of give me an idea where I need to scribe, trim, and cut the old metal out. So that process is going to take probably longer than making the patches did, because you got to really take your time to trim it back, fit it in, and when you're butt welding these, you have to really get everything to fit nicely. The other thing is that I'm overlapping panels like the factory would have done, so I do need to take these back out, spray them with some weld through self-etching primer from Eastwood, and then just grind off the primer in the areas where I'm actually welding, but those areas that are going to be touching the original material that I'm also going to prime, that will keep them from rusting because they're going to be overlapped. I'm going to do a couple little hidden spot welds on those to keep them all together, and then everything will be sealed up, good to go. I'm also going to probably run a bead of seam sealer on the inside of the panel where they overlap, again, just to be proactive in keeping any moisture or rust out of those areas so this car will last beyond my lifetime. So that's all I have for this one. Hopefully some of those tips and tricks were helpful for you guys and how I make these rear corner patches that can be quite complex if you don't know how to go about making them. We do videos on Tuesdays, Fridays, and Sunday. Please give us a like, a share, and also don't forget to subscribe. Appreciate it, guys. Catch you later.